on celestial intelligences, virtues, numbers, and magic squares. Adapted from Francis Barrett's The Magus, 1801. Part 1. That the passions of the mind are assisted by celestials, and that constancy of mind is in every work necessary. The passions of the mind are much helped, and are helpful, and become most powerful by virtue of the heaven, as they agree with the heaven, either by any natural agreement or voluntary election. For, as Ptolemy says, he who chooseth that which is better seems to differ nothing from him who hath this of nature. It conduceth therefore very much for the receiving the benefit of the heavens, in any work, if we shall, by the heaven, make ourselves suitable to it in our thoughts, affections, imaginations, elections, deliberations, contemplations, and the like. For such like passions vehemently stir up our spirits to their likeness, and suddenly expose us and ours to the superior significators of such like passions, and also, by reason of their dignity and nearness to the superiors, do partake more of the celestials than any material thing. For our mind can, through imaginations, or reason by a kind of imitation, be so conformed to any star as to suddenly be filled with the virtues of that star, as if we were a proper receptacle of the influence thereof. Now, the contemplating mind, as it withdraws itself from all sense, imagination, nature, and deliberation, and calls itself back to the things separated, effects diverse things by faith, which is called a firm adhesion, a fixed intention, and vehement application of the worker or receiver to him that cooperates in anything, and gives power to the work which we intend to do, so that there is made, as it were, in us the image of the virtue to be received, and the thing to be done in us or by us. We must, therefore, in every work and application of things, affect vehemently, imagine, hope, and believe strongly, for that will be a great help. And it is verified amongst physicians that a strong belief and an undoubtable hope, and a love towards the physician, conduce much to health, yea, more sometimes than the medicine itself. For the same that the efficacy and virtue of the medicine works, the same doth the strong imagination of the physician work, being able to change the qualities of the body of the sick, especially when the patient places much confidence in the physician, by that means disposing himself for the receiving the virtue of the physician and the physic. Therefore, he that works in magic must be of a constant belief, be credulous, and not at all doubt of the obtaining of the effect. For as a firm and strong belief doth work wonderful things, although it be in false works, so distrust and doubting doth dissipate and break the virtue of the mind of the worker, which is the medium betwixt both extremes, whence it happens that he is frustrated of the desired influence of the superiors, which could not be enjoined and united to our labors, without a firm and solid virtue of our mind. Part 2. How man's mind may be joined with the mind of intelligences and celestials, and together with them impress certain wonderful virtues upon inferior things. The philosophers, especially the Arabians, say that man's mind, when it is most intent upon any work, through its passion and effects, is joined with the mind of the stars and intelligences, and, being so joined, is the cause that some wonderful virtue be infused into our works and things, and this, as because there is in it an apprehension and power of all things, so because all things have a natural obedience to it, and of necessity an efficacy, and more to that which desired them with a strong desire. And according to this is verified the art of characters, images, enchantments, and some speeches, and many other wonderful experiments, to everything which the mind affects. By this means, whatsoever the mind of him that is in vehement love affects, hath an efficacy to cause love, and whatsoever the mind of him that strongly hates dictates, hath an efficacy to hurt and destroy. The like is in other things which the mind affects with a strong desire. For all those things which the mind acts and dictates by characters, figures, words, speeches, gestures, and the like, help the appetite of the soul, and acquire certain wonderful virtues from the soul of the operator in that hour when such a like appetite doth invade it. So from the opportunity and celestial influence, moving the mind in this or that manner. For our mind, when it is carried upon the great excess of any passion or virtue, oftentimes takes to itself a strong, better, and more convenient hour or opportunity, which Thomas Aquinas, in his third book against the Gentiles, allows. So, many wonderful virtues both cause and follow certain admirable operations by great affections, in those things which the soul doth dictate in that hour to them. But know that such kinds of things confer nothing, or very little, but to the author of them, and to him who is inclined to them, as if he were the author of them. And this is the manner by which their efficacy is found out. And it is a general rule in them, that every mind that is more excellent in its desire and affection makes such like things more fit for itself, as also efficacious to that which it desires. Every one, therefore, that is willing to work in magic, must know the virtue, measure, order, and degree of his own soul in the power of the universe. Part 3. Showing the necessity of mathematical knowledge and of the great power and efficacy of numbers in the construction of talismans, etc. The doctrines of mathematics are so necessary to, and have such an affinity with magic, that they who profess it without them are quite out of the way, and labor in vain, and shall in no wise obtain their desired effect. For whatsoever things are, and are done in these inferior natural virtues, are all done and governed by number, weight, measure, harmony, motion, and light. And all things which we see in these inferiors have root and foundation in them. Yet, nevertheless, without natural virtues of mathematical doctrines, only works like to naturals can be produced. As Plato saith, a thing not partaking of truth or divinity, but certain images akin to them, as bodies going or speaking, which yet want the animal faculty, such as were those which, amongst the ancients, were called Daedalus' images, and automata, of which Aristotle makes mention, namely the 3-footed images of Vulcan and Daedalus moving themselves, which Homer saith came out of their own accord to the exercise, and which, we read, moved themselves at the feast of Hyarba, the philosophical exerciser. So there are made glasses, some concave, others of the form of a column, making the representation of things in the air seem like shadows at a distance, of which sort Apollonius and Vitellius, in their books De Prospectiva and Speculis, taught the making and the use. And we read that Magnus Pompeius brought a certain glass among the spoils from the east to Rome, in which were seen armies of armed men. And there are made certain transparent glasses which, being dipped in some certain juices of herbs and irradiated with an artificial light, fill the whole air around them with visions. And we know how to make reciprocal glasses, in which the sun shining, all things which were illustrated by the rays thereof are apparently seen many miles off. Hence a magician, expert in natural philosophy and mathematics, and knowing the middle sciences consisting of both these, namely arithmetic, music, geometry, optics, astronomy, and such sciences that are of weights, measures, proportions, articles, and joints, knowing also mechanical arts resulting from these, may, without any wonder if he excel other men in the art and wit, do many wonderful things, which men may much admire. There are some relics now extant of the ancients, namely Hercules and Alexander's pillars, the gates of Caspia, made of brass and shut with iron beams, that it could by no art be broken, and the pyramids of Julius Caesar erected at Rome near the hill Vaticanus, and mountains built by art in the middle of the sea, and towers and heaps of stone, such as I have seen in England, put together by incredible art. But the vulgar, seeing any wonderful sight, impute it to the devil as his work, or think that a miracle, which, indeed, is a work of natural or mathematical philosophy. But here it is convenient that you know that, as by natural virtue we collect natural virtues, so by abstracted, mathematical, and celestial, we receive celestial virtues, as motion, sense, life, speech, soothsaying, and divination even in matters less disposed, as that which is not made by nature, but only by art. And so images that speak and foretell things to come are said to be made, as William of Paris relates of a brazen head made under the rising of Saturn, which, they say, spake with a man's voice. But he that will choose a disposed matter, and most fit to receive, and a most powerful agent, shall undoubtedly produce more powerful effects. For it is a general opinion of the Pythagoreans that, as mathematical are more formal than natural, so also they are more efficacious, as they have less dependence in their being, so also in their operation. But amongst all mathematical things, numbers, as they have more of form in them, so also are more efficacious, as well to effect what is good as what is bad. All things which were first made by the nature of things in its first age seem to be formed by the proportion of numbers, for this was the principal pattern in the mind of the Creator. Hence is borrowed the number of the elements, hence the courses of the times, hence the motion of the stars, and the revolution of the heavens, and the state of all things subsist by the uniting together of numbers. Numbers, therefore, are endowed with great and sublime virtues. For it is no wonder, seeing there are so many occult virtues in natural things, although of manifest operations, that there should be in numbers much greater and more occult, and also more wonderful and efficacious, for as much as they are more formal, more perfect, and naturally in the celestials, not mixed with separate substances, and lastly, having the greatest and most simple commixtion with the ideas in the mind of God, from which they receive their proper and most efficacious virtues. Wherefore, they also are of most force, and conduce most to the obtaining of spiritual and divine gifts, as in natural things, elementary qualities are powerful in the transmuting of any elementary thing. Again, all things that are and are made subsist by and receive their virtue from numbers. For time consists of numbers, and all motion, and action, and all things which are subject to time and motion. Harmony also, and voices have their power by and consist of numbers and their proportions. And the proportion arising from numbers do, by lines and points, make characters and figures, and these are proper to magical operations, the middle, which is betwixt both, being appropriated by declining to the extremes, as in the use of letters. And lastly, all species of natural things, and of those which are above nature, are joined together by certain numbers, which Pythagoras, seeing, says that number is that by which all things subsist, and distributes each virtue to each number. And Proclus says, number hath always a being, yet there is one in voice, another in proportion of them, another in the soul and reason, and another in divine things. But Themistius, Boethius, and Averroes, the Babylonian, together with Plato, do so extol numbers, that they think no man can be a true philosopher without them. By them there is a way made for the searching out and understanding of all things knowable. By them the next access to natural prophesying is had, and the abbot Joachim proceeded no other way in his prophecies but by formal numbers. Part 4. The great virtues of numbers, as well in natural things as in supernatural. That there lies wonderful efficacy and virtue in numbers, as well to good as to bad, the most eminent philosophers unanimously teach, especially Jerome, Augustine, Origen, Ambrose, Gregory of Nazianzen, Athanasius, Basil, Hilary, Rubanus, Bede, and many more conform. Hence, Hilary, in his commentaries upon the Psalms, testifies that the 70 elders, according to the efficacy of numbers, brought the Psalms into order. The natural number is not here considered, but the formal consideration that is in the number. And let that which we spoke before always be kept in mind, namely, that these powers are not in vocal numbers of merchants buying and selling, but in rational, formal, and natural. These are the distinct mysteries of God and nature. But he who knows how to join together the vocal numbers and natural with divine, and order them into the same harmony, shall be able to work and know wonderful things by numbers, in which, unless there was a great mystery, John had not said in the Revelation, "He that hath understanding, let him compute the number of the name of the beast, which is the number of a man." And this is the most famous manner of computing amongst the Hebrews and Kabbalists, as we shall show afterwards. But this you must know, that simple numbers signify divine things, numbers of 10, celestial numbers of 100, terrestrial numbers of 1,000, those things that shall be in a future age. Besides, seeing the parts of the mind are according to an arithmetical mediocrity, by reason of the identity or equality of excess coupled together, but the body, whose parts differ in their greatness, is according to a geometrical mediocrity compounded, but an animal consists of both, namely soul and body, according to that mediocrity which is suitable to harmony. Hence it is that numbers work very much upon the soul, figures upon the body, and harmony upon the whole animal. Part 5. The magic tables of the planets, their form and virtue, what divine names, intelligences, and spirits are set over them. There are certain magic tables of numbers distributed to the 7 planets, which they call sacred tables of the planets, because, being rightly formed, they are endued with great many virtues of the heavens, insomuch that they represent the divine order of the celestial numbers, impressed upon them by the ideas of the divine mind, by means of the soul of the world, and the sweet harmony of those celestial rays, signifying, according to proportion, super-celestial intelligences, which can no other way be expressed than by the marks of numbers, letters, and characters. For material numbers and figures can do nothing in the mysteries of hidden things, but representatively by formal numbers and figures, as they are governed and informed by intelligences and divine enumerations, which unite the extremes of matter and spirit to the will of the elevated soul, receiving, through great affection by the celestial powers of the operator, a virtue and power from God, applied through the soul of the universe, and the observation of celestial constellations to a matter fit for a form, the mediums being disposed by the skill and industry of the magician. But now we will hasten to explain each particular table. The first table is assigned to the planet Saturn, and consists of a square of 3, containing the particular numbers of 9, and in every line 3 every way, and through each diameter making 15, the whole sum of numbers 45. Over this are set such divine names as fill up the numbers with an intelligence to what is good, and a spirit to what is bad. And out of the same numbers are drawn the seal and character of Saturn, and of the spirits thereof, such as is beneath ascribed to the table. Now, this table being with a fortunate Saturn, engraven on a plate of lead, helps childbirth, and to make any man safe or powerful, and to cause success of petitions with princes and powers. But if it be done, Saturn being unfortunate, it hinders buildings, planting, and the like, and casts a man from honors and dignities, causes discord, quarreling, and disperses an army. The second is the table of Jupiter, which consists of a square drawn into itself. It contains 16 particular numbers, and in every line and diameter 4, making 34. The sum of all is 136. There are over it divine names, with an intelligence to that which is good, and a spirit to what is bad, and out of it is drawn the character of Jupiter and the spirits thereof. If this is engraven on a plate of silver, with Jupiter being powerful and ruling in the heavens, it conduces to gain riches and favor, love, peace, and concord, and to appease enemies, and to conform honors, dignities, and counsels, and, if engraven on a coral, dissolves enchantments. The third table belongs to Mars, which is made of a square of 5, containing 25 numbers, and of these, in every side and diameter, 5, which makes 65, and the sum of all is 325. And there are over it divine names with an intelligence to good and a spirit to evil, and out of it is drawn the characters of Mars and his spirits. These with Mars fortunate, being engraven on an iron plate or sword, makes a man potent in war and judgment, and petitions, and terrible to his enemies, and victorious over them, and if engraven upon the stone Coriola, it stops blood and menstruation. But if it be engraven with Mars being unfortunate on a plate of red brass. It prevents and hinders buildings. It casts down the powerful from dignities, honors and riches, causes discord and hatred amongst men and beasts, drives away bees, pigeons, and fish, and hinders mills from working, that is, binds them. It likewise renders hunters and fighters unfortunate, causes barrenness in men and women, and strikes a terror into our enemies, and compels them to submit. The fourth table is of the sun, and it is made of a square of 6, and contains 36 particular numbers, whereof 6 in every side and diameter produce 111, and the sum of all is 666. There are over it divine names, with an intelligence to what is good, and a spirit to what is evil, and out of it is drawn the character of the sun, and the character of his spirits. This being engraven on a plate of pure gold, Sol being fortunate, renders him that wears it renowned, amiable, acceptable, potent in all his works, and equals him to a king, elevating his fortunes and enabling him to do whatever he will. But with an unfortunate son, it makes one a tyrant, proud, ambitious, insatiable, and finally to come to an ill ending. The fifth table is of Venus, consisting of a square of 7, drawn into itself, namely of 49 numbers, whereof 7 on each side and diameter make 175, and the sum of all is 1,225. There are likewise over it divine names, with an intelligence to do good, and a spirit to evil. And there is drawn out of it the character of Venus, and her spirits. This being engraven on a plate of silver, Venus being fortunate, promotes concord, ends strife, procures the love of women, helps conception, is good against barrenness, gives ability for generation, dissolves enchantments, causes peace between man and woman, and makes all kinds of animals fruitful, and likewise cattle, and being put into a dove or pigeon house, causes an increase. It likewise drives away melancholy distempers, and causes joyfulness, and this being carried about travellers, makes them fortunate. But if it be formed upon brass, Venus being unfortunate, it acts contrary to all that has been said. The sixth table is of Mercury, resulting from a square of 8 drawn into itself, containing 64 numbers, whereof 8 on every side, and by both diameters make 260. And the sum of all is 2,080. And over it are set divine names, with an intelligence to good, and a spirit to bad, and from it is drawn a character of Mercury, and the spirits thereof. And if, with Mercury being fortunate, you engrave it upon silver, tin, or yellow brass, or write it upon virgin parchment, it renders the bearer thereof grateful, acceptable, and fortunate to do what he pleases. It brings gain and prevents poverty, helps the memory, understanding, and divination, and to the understanding of occult things by dreams. But with an unfortunate Mercury, it does everything contrary to this. The seventh and last table is of the moon. It consists of a square of 9, having 81 numbers in every side, and diameter 9, producing 369, and the sum of all is 3,321. There are over it divine names, with an intelligence to what is good, and a spirit to evil, and from it are drawn the characters of the moon, and the spirits thereof. This, the moon being fortunate, engraven on silver, makes the bearer amiable, pleasant, cheerful, and honored, removing all malice and ill will. It causes security in a journey, increase of riches, and health of body, drives away enemies and other evil things from what place soever thou shalt wish them to be expelled. But if the moon be unfortunate, and it be engraven on a plate of lead, wherever it shall be buried, it shall make that place unfortunate, and the inhabitants thereabouts, as also ships, rivers, fountains, and mills. And it makes every man unfortunate against whom it shall be directly done, making him fly his place of abode, and even his country, where it shall be buried. And it hinders physicians and orators, and all men whatsoever in their office, against whom it shall be made. Now how the seals and characters of the planets are drawn from these tables, the wise searcher, and he who shall understand the verifying of these tables, shall easily find out. The End. If you would like to support more work such as this, please visit patreon.com/themodernhermeticist, and above all, thank you for listening.